a pre-draft Friday football feast this week at Buffalo Wild Wings Savage. Doors open at 8 ahead of a live 9 to noon broadcast with PA in charge. Join us for football, wings, and prizes. KFAN.com keyword calendar for more info.
Welcome. Here is Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, joining yours truly, Paul Allen, shortly after 11 from Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, and day 2 of the off-season workouts and week and small change in front of the National Football League draft. Now, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, sir.
Good to see you.
How are you guys?
Pretty well, thank you. Even with the players hopping and skipping and conditioning and everything that's going on with the 8 in the morning and stuff like that, like, do you go in there for that? Like, to watch the whole thing?
Not allowed to.
Oh, you're not?
Not allowed to, yeah. They strictly...
I'm glad you said that, because I was in there 5 minutes, and I was wondering where you were.
Yeah, no, we're coaches are not allowed on the field for the first 2 weeks.
Not even on the field?
Not even
talking?
on the field.
Well, that's dumb.
Now, there are windows in this building, so if it wasn't, pouring rain right now, maybe there'd be some windows, but...
Okay.
But no, we're not allowed in there. That's why, I know yesterday talking about Josh Hinks and Tyler Williams, they basically control the first couple weeks here as we prepare these guys for the next phase, which then we can get on the field in phase 2. We kind of split the team up, offense, defense. We're on the field at different times of the day. That way, I can be, having a little bit more of a role with the defense as they kind of build the techniques, fundamentals, start building the defense, and we do the same thing offensively. A little bit more of a passing kind of camp feel to it at that point, but we do start putting in our offense from a standpoint of the run game and how we marry it all up and try to build a system.
The rumor has it, or did you go to the Masters this weekend?
I did.
What was that like?
It was my second time. I was actually there in 2019. Tiger had just bogeyed hole 5, and we were near the tee box on hole 6. Went on to birdie hole 6 and win the tournament, so I thought I would have that impact on him again. Unfortunately, Scotty Scheffler had another thing going, but it was phenomenal. It's such an unbelievable place, and got a chance to, meet a lot of great people, spend some time with Jim Nance and Scott Van Pelt, and just kind of take it all in.
Jeez.
So it's my second time there, hopefully not my last.
You, Van Pelt, and Nance, who's the tallest?
I think Van Pelt.
Pretty close.
He certainly feels like it, and he's. I've got a little bit more hair than him for now, so
right.
I think I think SVP's got it. But we could make a heck of a older gentleman's basketball team.
When you talk to Jim Nance, and I know you've talked to him many times, but do you ever become mesmerized, like when you shake his hand? Like, say you see him at the field house. He was here last year. It's a Friday, and I got here early from Buffalo Wild Wings before practice was over, and there he was, and he's walking up with the big imposing presence, and how are you? Or hi, Kevin, or like how he does it initially with whatever the signature line is. I mean, that's just, doesn't it move you when you hear that?
Yeah, I was with a couple of my closest friends, and he walked up and hit us with the hello, friends.
Thank you.
And that was about all she wrote. Jim's fantastic. Anytime they come to town to do our games, I always try to spend a little extra time with them. Just nobody, there's very few people just as respectful, but just so smart, wealth of knowledge, been around so many great people, and, in professional sports. So huge Jim Nance fan.
I sadly missed the press conference yesterday here because we were doing 9 to noon. It was excellent timing by it fell right around, when 9 to noon was on the radio. So let me guess, you dropped names. Like you were given names yesterday at the press conference, right? Like rookie names and stuff. And of course, I wasn't there and I missed it.
Names. I mean, we gave it all up. No, we did not. You didn't miss
it all at the podium.
I'm sure Vikings fans would probably agree. Anybody who checked in that not much came out of that. But that tends to be it was the start of the off season. Press conference. I think I made note of that in my opening statement, and we didn't speak about it again.
Yeah.
We spend most of our time talking about this funny little thing called the draft.
Right, and off that, it can get here anytime now, right? I mean, you've been through enough of them, but you got 2 first-round picks, and it's the draft coming up a week from Thursday with certain elements where it's strong or where it's not strong. Just doing your job. but it's different this year, your third year, and it could just go ahead and get here any time now, right?
It absolutely can, but the good thing is our players are back. I always enjoy that week before the draft because I at least know, I can take some peace in knowing our players will be back in the building, and getting around those guys always energizes you, gets you ready to roll. You really feel like it's, turning the page to 2024 and starting to build our team. And the draft's going to be an exciting time for Vikings fans. It certainly will be for our aspect of building what we hope to be this year and beyond. And looking forward to it. It's been a great process. Kwesi and his staff, our coaching staff, kind of putting it all together, working side by side. It's been really good. Now we just, unfortunately, the draft is a scenario-based kind of stretch of 3 days where you've got to be ready for a lot of other teams, making some similar decisions on how they're going to build their teams as well. And that's why we go through the process the way we do, and we have to have a plan of attack regardless of how it shapes up starting the night on Thursday.
Kevin, I would imagine having the players back for the off-season workouts, whether you can be in the building, you have to use a Belichick Hubble telescope to watch it from 10 miles away, or just staying away, is helping you sleep. Because you have other things to think about. I mean, do you run first round scenarios through your mind or draft scenarios all the time?
You do, especially, considering you do that anyway when you have one first round pick. Mind you, you've got two, separated by 12 picks, and there's a lot of players in this draft. I think this is a very, very strong draft. At particular positions, but also just throughout. You go back and you really talk to these guys, and you find a lot of these guys were in college a year longer than maybe they would have been had COVID not happened, and they could take recruiting trips. A lot of these guys were guys that went to schools without ever stepping foot on campus because of the world and what it was like at that point. Then they transfer rules, NIL, all that kicks in. So now you've got players that quite honestly have developed and maybe turned into better versions of themselves than would have been the case had all those circumstances not existed. So you're really evaluating a deep class. The age, I've talked to players that turned 21 a month or two ago. I've talked to guys that could be 26 by the middle of their rookie year. So you're talking about such a range of guys where they are in their football journeys and trying to figure out not only what that looks like now, but what it will ultimately be, when they become what we hope they do as Minnesota Vikings.
Maybe, maybe the ultimate wild card is thrown into the first round of the draft, and all of a sudden you end up with Brock Bowers, and it's like just mash on teams with tight ends. First down left to Bowers, first down right to Hawkinson, touchdown over the top to Johnny Munt, and that becomes the identity of the Minnesota Vikings. And Brock Bowers is the bomb, by the way, but I don't know. I think that would throw the proverbial monkey wrench in a lot of the conversations a lot of people have been having in and or outside the building. How does the football methodology part of the equation help you? Oh, and you want to talk about Brock Bowers? I didn't think you did.
Yeah, I was. He's a heck of a player. There's no doubt.
No doubt.
I think just overall, it all starts around your football philosophy, how you want your team to play, and that's an evolving thing. Because I think back on our first year into our second year here, and I truly believe in many, many cases that with NFL players, you got the right kind of guys, you're going to get what you emphasize. And so I put a lot of time and energy and thought into building parameters from a standpoint of understanding how important our culture is in this building. But then you get to play style. You guys are going to hear me talk about the words play style, I should say, a lot this year, because I truly think year 3 now, we've got systems in place. Brian Flores, doing what he did last year, coming in here and really transforming the mentality of our defense. We want to continue to build upon that. Offensively, we really feel like at this point we can build an offensive system based upon some of the additions we've made. A guy like Aaron Jones adding to your team, getting back healthy again with Jets and Jordan, and TJ's working through his process right now, and then just continuing to solidify, our identities as a football team, and then play style of understanding how important ball security is. And we learned that the very, very hard way. And it's something we do emphasize, but, clearly part of being a coach that is still growing and developing and trying to be the best version of myself is I've got to continue to find ways to reach this team and emphasize the things that are important.
Soft and warm, the quiet storm.
I kind of like that right there.
Fire it up. It's gone now. Is there a press conference or something? That's generally the music that's played before press conferences, but took me back to...
I thought it was like an award ceremony where that answer went a little long and you were trying to wrap me up right there.
Well, why would you say your answers go long?
They tend to do that.
Well, are you kidding me? It's the best. Don't change, and don't let anybody ever tell you it's the best or the worst, even though I just said it's the best. Just that music, that's little smooth jazz instrumental piece there triggered me to be like, it's soft and warm. The Quiet Storm, KFAN. It's Kevin O'Connell, coach of the Minnesota Vikings, with yours truly, Paul Allen. And off the football methodology piece, you have what are known as simulations. Okay, yep. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah talked about it last week, and in outside of the building, we call them mock drafts. But they're obviously fans or people aren't running through 8,000 scenarios up to the draft. But is it fun? I mean, it sounds fun. It sounds like the kids game portion or the fan game portion of high-end business.
Yeah, it is, because you think about a lot of scenarios, right? And how do we come about that information? We have guys in this building in our analytics department that can formulate things that, we can click a button and have simulations run based upon all of those, of that information that's out there, that's giving you, percentages on things likely to happen. And we can play out the likely scenarios, and then we can play out teams moving up, moving down, whatever it may be, and we understand based upon studies of what other teams' needs are, because in a lot of ways, you got to know your opponents, even during draft season, because you have to know where people are likely to go with their selections when you're projecting what kind of players could be available at 11 or 23 or anywhere else we could end up picking. And a lot goes into it, and then that's where you get the great dialogue, the discussion, player fit, how we see this guy maybe being a better version of himself as a Minnesota Viking than maybe going to another team. Maybe it's scheme-based. Maybe it's where they're at, in their football development. And then ultimately how they're going to fit in with some of the other critical pieces that we feel very strongly about within our locker room already.
When that music popped in there for a second, did you hear how quickly it was eliminated? I mean, how about the quick twitch of the producer, Nordo? I mean, you're in the quick twitch business. You look for it, you pay for it, you draft it. How about that quick twitch?
It was no different than resetting to a backside in cut. Finding a way to move the chains on a 3rd and 8. Overcoming coaching in a lot of ways is a very important a very important talent in this building.
That was beautiful. With the simulations, or as the fans would say, the mocks, and button push, and it all happens, not moving cards or anything. Do you or anybody ever wake up, not in cold sweat like fashion, but we haven't talked about this team moving up enough, and nobody's talking about it, and we all claim we don't read here or watch anything, but we all read here and watch everything, and we don't talk about this enough, and this player at this spot is not very good, so let's think that even though he makes a lot, they might, you know what I'm saying? Does that ever happen?
I think the biggest thing is, I've been a part of some drafts where some very, very strong takes and narratives really drive through the whole draft process. And you're just watching the tape, you're doing your evaluations, you're meeting these players, and you don't see it the same way. And ultimately, in the end, a lot of times, the 32 teams tend to see it a little bit closer to each other than maybe some of the things that are out there. And I know a lot of these mock drafts and things are coming from, little whispers here and there and inside information. But in the end, nobody knows what's really going to happen. There may be some pretty strong feelings about, the first pick in the draft, or, what type of position there might be runs on early in the draft. But in the end, the draft's going to start. There's going to be some things that we didn't expect to happen. How we handle that and how we ultimately come out with the best possible selections comes back to the process at which took place over really long before these last 2-3 months. That's when us as coaches really get involved throughout this offseason. But Kwesi and his staff have been building up to this really since the day last year's draft ended, and in some cases even before that.
In our world, whether here at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, I'm talking about the radio show or just football fans, is we talk about so much so frequently, and sometimes it will hone into an A topic, at least what we perceive to be an A topic. But through the conversation, there are things that just don't get mentioned that I think should not be swept under the table. And this one about your team is no matter how you analyze the defense, the Brian Flores defense from A through the end. So if it's like, all right, there goes Mike Evans, and now we got this in Philly, and then we got Keenan Allen, and then it tightened, So from the outside, I'd be like, all right, it went quick twitch for all of them, but hey, it takes a little bit. That's my opinion. Then at the end of the season, you got players playing more than they've ever played in their lives. So if legs got tired a little bit, that's understandable too. But in between, there was a lot of good. So much good, in my estimation, that like Harrison Phillips, Jordan Hicks, Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus, let's go on, Jonathan Bullard, let's go on and on. They had the best seasons of their careers for long patches. So now the next year with this tricky thing and with that leader, I'm not going to be like Evans and Blackman. I'm not going to put names on it. That's going to happen because I don't think a lot of people saw in the building. You probably did, but a lot of people on the outside didn't see a lot of that coming, but it was fact. It's going to happen again. With those who have been in this system for the second year and whatever players you draft, depending on how quickly they can get it, because it is complicated, I would imagine.
It is, and ultimately what I was most proud of is just the way our defense and really Flo and his staff a year ago kind of morphed and changed their style throughout the season, presenting different looks, different type of mentality to how Flo called it, and really trying to do whatever it took to try to give us a chance to win that particular game, that particular Sunday. I think as we go into year 2 of Flo's defense, the hope is we continue to, kind of really strengthen that identity of what we want to be as a Vikings defense, but also, get in a situation where we can truly, by adding a few more pieces here and there, some of the great pieces that I thought we added in free agency, we can continue to attempt to dictate through scheme and our players on the field of allowing them to play fast, physical, going to come back to that play style thing again, and ultimately continue to grow from year 1 to year 2. I'm looking forward to it.
And two quickies left. I got a game here for you. Hopefully you like it. The NFC North. I mean, I'm not breaking news here. It's getting tougher by the second.
It definitely is.
I mean, I'm not going to go best division in football bit. The AFC North's pretty good, and you got the Chiefs over there and stuff in the AFC West. But man, our division's becoming quite the meat grinder, isn't it?
It is, and you look at some of the things people have been able to do, acquiring talent and, having some real draft capital over the years in one way or the other, whether, what Detroit's done to build up their team and really build a strong core of players along their fronts and adding skill players and doing the things that they've done. And then you look at, obviously, Chicago's in a prime position to continue to make the most of, some pretty serious assets and the transition from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love up in Green Bay and what he was able to really turn that offense into, especially down the stretch and through the playoffs. It's going to be very competitive. Ultimately, we have a lot of confidence that we can build a team to be competitive, and we know the games are going to be close. And when games are close, you got to play good football. You got to play smart. You got to have that situational feel of how you're going to try to either close out a victory or a lead you may have, or chase it down in the end like we did in 2022. But ultimately, we're going to have to build a team that can play for 4 quarters, not do the things that lose games before we ever give ourselves a real shot to win them. Is probably the most important thing. And we're going to be transitioning. With a new quarterback, we're going to be transitioning with some new players on defense. So that's where I've really challenged our coaches to, from the first moment we get in front of these guys as of yesterday, to be building, the mentality of this spring is about teaching, learning, the development of younger players, the growth and the addition that we've had with free agency in the draft. But ultimately, by the time we come to training camp, our guys need to be ready to compete. They need to be ready for a physical training camp and build this football team to withstand not only our division, but once again, it just seems like it every year. You got a heck of a schedule out in front of you when you finally get a look at that thing. We got to be ready to go for 17 games and see where we fall.
I pulled a draft analysis piece of a quarterback from a draft from NFL.com. Okay, so I didn't go any outside wild ones, or I went to NFL.com. And this quarterback is not you. Okay? So I'm going to give you some hints, some clues, and let's see if you can figure out who this is.
Okay.
You in?
Yep.
Number 1, The report loves his size, arm strength, accuracy, pocket mobility, poise, and field reading capability.
Is it in which draft is this? Are we going back for?
I said a quarterback in a draft. So we're not going back to Sammy Baugh. Slinging Sammy Baugh is not the answer. Number 2. Says his windup is an eyesore, but has velocity to mitigate additional release time. Makes it sound like he needs to start working out of the stretch.
I didn't get a chance to answer number 1 first.
No, these are all just clues. Okay. It's an answer to one person.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for
number 3.
I think I know where we're going with this.
Clue number 3. Completion percentage unaffected by blitzes. And it might be one of the ones this year. I mean, it could be the 4 everybody in the universe talks about, or the next 2, or the next one, or the guy who throws the ball 80 yards and played at Tennessee.
Can I make a guess?
You want to make a guess right now? You're sure? Okay, well, clue number 4 is grandfather is named Dick Hammer. That's his name.
Sam Darnold.
Come on, man. How'd you figure that out?
Yeah, we do a little bit of work.
But why didn't you go like
here.
Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, Alex Smith, you know?
It was, I would have guessed Sam
really?
After the
Did the
third...
Dick Hammer give it away? Well, that's...
After the third clue. After 2, I was thinking Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But then,
well, that's his grandfather's real name, by the way. This is not from some weird web. This is NFL.com.
Yep.
His grandfather was a USC basketball player.
Unbelievable athlete. Yep.
You knew that?
I did.
Oh, this sucks. Olympic volleyball star and one of the original Marlboro Man.
Yep.
Well, of course you knew that.
Yep.
Jeez, holy cow. And then I didn't think you would get it. And then I was going to say he's currently on your team and he's in the building right now. That was clue number 5. Okay, well, just off this wind-up thing. I mean, they're making him sound like a former Cy Young Award winner. What's the wind-up? I mean,
yeah. Coming
is that a thing?
Coming out of USC, there was depending on how you viewed certain throws that Sam would make, there were some times where that that release and that motion was maybe a little bit longer. But like with a lot of guys in this league, the game speeds up. You start to play, hopefully in a rhythm-based offense where you can tie your feet and eyes together and anticipate throws and do some things where you're playing on your time clock and not the defense's. Sam's had the ability to really, I think that's one of the things that jumped out to me. It was limited tape, no doubt, from his year in San Francisco, but I thought he really got efficient with his lower half. He really got in a place where he could, he looked to me like he was in a true growth stage, even at this point in his career. And I saw a lot of good things that I cannot wait when we are allowed, PA, to get out on the grass and start coaching these guys. Sam's going to be somebody that I'm just excited to work with, and I've always been a fan. And I think quarterback environment is a huge thing for all of us that have ever attempted to play the game. And
big time.
I get to be in a role where I get to try to help that for all the guys that play quarterback for us.
Completion percentage unaffected by blitzes. I think that's pretty cool. I appreciate you all the time.
Yeah, I go back to he played against Ohio State, I believe in the Cotton Bowl.
Darnold? Yeah. And you were Washington quarterbacks coach, passing game coordinator. And so you're looking hard at him, right?
Whether it was, it was the full gamut of that Ohio State defense. And not a lot of them were blocked that night. And he stood in there and stared down the barrel making throws. And I just remember that's always been something I remember about it. Because you can learn a lot about guys when circumstances are not, let's just call them less than ideal.
Right. Mr. Ekstrom, let the record show the final 2 minutes of this interview were all courtesy of Kevin O'Connell. So I hit my... Thank you. I appreciate you, man. Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Curly Harris on camera. You'll see that at Vikings.com. That's Eric Nordquist, and I'm Paul Allen. Today is a coach's covenant. And when we return, we're going to replay the interview to start the show with Timberwolves head coach Chris Finch. You're listening to KFAN.
Before we go, I got the cash thing. The Fan and BigDeck.com. I want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com. Enter the keyword green for this hour. The keyword is green. KFAN.com. Keyword green. Welcome back, 9 to noon. PA and Nordo out in Egan, out of TCO. But we're going to listen back now to how he started the show with Wolves head coach Chris Finch, where PA started with congrats on the season you've had so far.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Paul. It's been a great year. Certainly has. Taken another big step forward, in terms of forming an identity, consistently performing at a high level every night. Young players getting better and better. So we got a great foundation to keep building, and we're excited about this playoff opportunity, and a chance to kind of push forward, even in a landscape that's not been as kind to the Minnesota basketball scene as we would like in the last few years. But 3 years in a row in the playoffs, it's nothing that we should take for granted.
Yes, sir. Very well explained. And speaking of the Suns, I have some Phoenix Suns steam that I know you're just dying to hear, right? My intel and steam into a playoff series. Are you ready?
Sure.
In Phoenix's last 4 losses, Grayson Allen is shooting 32% and a robust 4 of 29 from 3. I present that asking, how key is it to put Allen on bad shooting games, given the others on whom they rely?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, with Booker and Durant in particular, and now Beal seemingly finding his groove, they got a lot of guys who can create and make their own shot. So anytime they're going to be a handful. Anytime you can get a chance to affect the guys that are in the supporting cast, you got to do it. We got to do a better job of that. He's done a good job of hurting us in our matchups with him, and we've just got to be more mindful. But we paid a lot of attention to the others, and sometimes these are the decisions that you make, and we've gotten burned, no doubt.
Secondly, is it fair to say with the 3 high, at times super high enders they start, is it an absolute that, like with Booker, Durant, and Beal, that they all can't flourish? Like at least one has to be defended, say, into a bad game?
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment. And we've been able to kind of impact one of them, one way or another for most of the games we've played. It's just been the overall group. Where we've really gotten hurt, Paul, is starts. The starts of the game against Phoenix, all 3 times for us have been a disaster for one reason or another. And we had 11 turnovers in that first quarter on Sunday. In Phoenix 2 weeks ago, we started down 15-0. So with a team with that much firepower, it is really hard to play from behind because their shot making is so elite that even when you close the gap to 8 or 7 or something like this, and you feel like you're in striking distance, they can hit 2 or 3 tough shots in a row. Even if you play great defense on them, to push that league back out to 12, 15 and give themselves enough breathing room. So we got to tighten the game up from the beginning. And to me, we've not been able to do that.
And it's excellent you said that. I mean, the last time you guys beat Phoenix, you outscored them 35-25 in the first quarter. So, I mean, this season, they're a plus 40 in first quarters of games against you guys. So the fast start, it may be cliche, but like Saturday, I mean, with that crowd and everything, it's a must starting Saturday, right?
No doubt about it. It's playoffs, of course. Physicality's got to go up. The desperation's got to go up. We got to get that building and that crowd into it right away, with our intent and the way that we're going to play from the jump. That's what we've played and worked all season for, is to have this game, to open the playoffs at home, to maintain, or give yourselves an opportunity to create an advantage with home court advantage and maintain that through a series and through a run. So this is what it's come down to.
Do you mind sharing the pros and cons of like your big lineups against Phoenix? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think we got to do a better job, and I got to do a better job of taking advantage of the big lineup on the offensive end of the floor, and there's different ways we can do that. Obviously, we can try to get the ball down inside a little bit more. We certainly got to be bigger and better on the offensive glass, kind of punish some of those lineups. Matchup-wise on the defensive end of the floor, we got to be creative. We've got to we've done a good job of kind of figuring out schemes throughout the season, executing them from game to game, and we got a little bit of a library of things we feel like we could do with our big lineup against their lineup. They like to play, small or more spread lineups with all the shooting that they have. So we've got a week to kind of brush off those things, get good at them, and put them into play.
How generally speaking, Chris, is playoff officiating compared to, say, the regular season?
It's quite different, I would say. They hold their whistle for sure, a lot more. But, to be fair, since the All-Star break, they've been kind of refereeing that way anyway. They've kind of, I think, held their whistle down the stretch here over the last 25 games of the season. You're not going to play for fouls in the playoffs, and nor should you expect to play for fouls. And if you're playing for fouls, you're you're probably playing in the wrong mindset. So, we gotta be a little bit tougher and a little better in our finishing, playing through contact, initiating smart contact at the defensive end of the floor, and being able to utilize more physicality there for sure.
And off that, Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, 9 to noon. Wolves and Suns Saturday at Target Center to begin the postseason. That's super cool. When you watch back stuff or watch games and off the foul calls or lack thereof, like when you're watching games or you watch them back and you see all types of players all over the league complaining about fouls. How often are the players telling the truth? How often are the players right?
I mean, it's like most things. I would say it's probably 50-50, Right. Referees have an incredibly tough job, particularly in the game these days with how fast it has become. How fluid it is now. It's not as predictable. These plays that happen are, kind of oftentimes come out of nowhere. But we can't be relying on that.
From time for two more, from some Booker in-game comments last season to Beal the other day, plus more. I mean, we have a really physical series coming here, don't we?
I would hope so. That's what we need to make it. We need to make it a real physical series, and we need to set the tone early and often.
And did you feel Sunday, like I'm watching the game Sunday, and granted they jumped you, and then we had some other things take place, but like that they came out just incredibly physical. Is that something like you'll show your guys and they'll be like, "Yep, got it. Yep, got it."
Yeah, we have a lot of different video sessions during this week, which is the benefit of having clinched the playoffs, being in the top six, is you get a week to prepare. The benefit of being in the threes position is who you're preparing for, even before the week starts. So these guys will be given a lot of different highly digestible messages and video sessions, that we feel will point to some things that we need to do to be successful in this series.
Yeah, that's terrific. Last one. And Nurkic for the Suns. I mean, I guess I'd forgotten this. You guys had Nurkic and Jokic in Denver like 7 years ago. Why didn't that stick? I mean, that's a pretty good one too.
Well, we played it together. Actually, we started the season. I think we played the first 15, 20 games. One at the 4, one at the 5. We played two bigs. And as the season then progressed, it was kind of about the time when everybody started playing more small lineups. Jokic's emergence was clear. Nurkic was too good of a player to be a backup, and Tim Conley at the time, I know it was a very, very difficult decision for him because I was there and we had a lot of discussions about it as a staff, to move on and trade him to Portland for some picks and pieces. And he flourished up there. He got to the role where he could actually start to become who he was always going to be. And then, obviously with Jokic, the rest is history. But we were spoiled to have two really skilled, talented young bigs at the same time, and you had to make a choice.
And off that, I mean, you spent a fair amount of time in Europe playing and or coaching, but like European bigs, I mean, back to DeMontis' dad, Arvydas. DeMontis is an elite passer, Vlade Divac, and now we're talking about Nurkic and Jokic. I mean, like how do they raise their bigs to be such good passers?
Well, a lot of their development structures when they're young kids, it's all positionless. So if a kid is big, they don't just do big guy things with them. They teach. Everybody does the same drills over and over, all the way through, really, up until they're about 18. Everyone does the same post footwork. Everyone does the same perimeter handling. Everybody does the same, short-sided playmaking things. So everybody's skill level is being brought along, at the same time, and obviously people can have a well-rounded game regardless of whatever. I think sometimes at least when I was growing up, I can't speak to how it is now so much, but when I was growing up, if someone was big, you planted them near the basket, you tried to throw them the ball, and you teach them a jump hook.
Right.
And the rest of the skill lagged behind, until they were able to either have it innately and get a chance to show it, or move to another environment where somebody recognized it and was able to bring it out of them. But, what I experienced when I was in Europe was looking at a lot of the development structures is that it's kind of like everybody was treated like you are treated when you first learn to play basketball. All the kids are doing all the same thing, but they just kept doing that all the way through to their, professional club structures.
And then you get a German big named Dirk Nowitzki who's going to shoot 1,000 3-pointers a day and be like, I'm never passing. I'm just going to get to the basket, then get to the line and shoot 3-pointers. And it worked beautifully for that HOF. Hey, man, you're terrific. Best of luck this weekend. We'll talk next week.
I appreciate it.
Chris Finch with PA to open the show 9 to noon. One final segment with PA at TCO. That's next. Final segment at 9 to noon brought to you by Casey's.
My dear friend Jay Nelson with the Vikings Entertainment Network, somebody I've known for a decade and large change, all the way back to Winter Park.
Yeah.
What would you describe? How would you describe what's your title and what you do here?
Technically, I'm senior manager for motion graphics for the Minnesota Vikings, but I also do a ton of stuff with the audio and podcast. And so I produce some of our shows, The Tailgate with Cy Amundsen. That's kind of our passion project that we love to do stuff with. And started off kind of helping as the producer editor for Minnesota Vikings podcast, and have kind of transitioned away from some of that, but I'm also on the show helping out Gabe and Tatum every week, and it's been awesome.
Well, with the Minnesota Vikings podcast, yours truly will be part of that. We're going to record about 10 minutes from now. Gabe Henderson is the other co-host, so Jay is the one you will hear with that at Vikings.com. But really, the purpose to have you in here to chat for a couple of minutes involves two things.
Okay.
First and foremost, Nordo has been pining to ask you or somebody of your variety, somebody behind the scenes we always are texting when we're coming here.
Yeah.
Make sure the studio's open, everything's working out well. It involves that microphone right there, that nice mic.
Yeah.
Did I break the microphone?
Like 2 months ago?
Technically, no.
Okay.
I think that, so personally, I will not hold you responsible for breaking the microphone.
Thank you.
I think that there was probably a loose bolt that was having an issue. And so
there was.
When it got touched, it basically just exploded.
I was the last person to touch it. So there you go.
But it's just like when you're a little kid, you set it up, it's already broken. You set it up and wait for your brother or sister to touch it.
Yeah.
And then it falls apart and you're like, what did you do? It's just the way that it's been at this point.
Well, I did plenty of that. I was actually, one of my first memories as a kid was on my 4th birthday, unwrapping my presents before my mom woke up.
Yeah.
And then trying to rewrap them. So you can imagine what that looked like. Older and wiser, I just left the microphone there and just pretended I never touched it. I just left.
So, I mean, honestly, we had to buy parts to fix it. But it was one of those things that after the fact that it happened, we're like, all right, I'm sure that I will not blame Nardo as the person who officially did it.
Okay. And secondly, and I've been meaning to tell you this for a little while because I know you really like MMA. You really like UFC.
Yep.
Okay. Did you attend UFC 300?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing.
You were there for the Holloway bit?
Yes.
My goodness.
Here's the point is I've followed it from afar, as you know by our conversations.
Yeah.
My son, Derek, and his friends are so into it. So he had a UFC 300 party and invited Dad to come hang out. So I watched, I'd say 3 or 4 of them. The Holloway punch, unbelievable.
Yes.
But the previous one, 299.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm new to this. Okay, so UFC snobs don't go to hating. Sean O'Malley's unbelievable. He's an unbelievable fighter. You see him roll out there, forget the hair, forget everything ancillary about him. I mean, holy cow, does he want to whoop somebody's ass?
For sure. And the thing about him is that he's somebody that he started kind of at the lower level, but even when he was in his kind of preliminary fights within the UFC, you could tell he's a superstar. So in general, he's somebody that is appointment viewing at this point. And if he is a headliner, especially like in 299, I think the numbers go boffo for him because he is that kind of charisma. He's almost like early stages of Conor McGregor. He's that kind of level at this point for the UFC.
You're my man. Thanks for having me on the podcast today. Okay.
Thanks guys for having me on.
That's old school best school. That's a longtime friend, Jay Nelson, who with Gabe Henderson does the Minnesota Vikings podcast. You'll get that later this week at Vikings.com. And they asked me to be the guest. Thank you, Nordo. Thank you, Brett Blakemore. And thank you, Vikings Media Relations. Likewise for Aaron Freeman with the Wolves. For Chris Finch for amplifying 9 to noon from Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. Bye-bye.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show. Or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.